Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Soul Search webinar series, the 11th installment. We shall begin with an opening prayer, immediately followed by the national anthem. Happy Independence Day to all of you. And I'd like to call on right now to lead us in prayer, Brother Lito Pardo, Elder of BCBP Las Piñas. Brother Lito.
Thank you, Brother Greg. Good evening, friends and countrymen. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we commemorate our Independence Day today. We celebrate the freedom that our forefathers and heroes have gifted us with. And so tonight we gather to fight for the truth, to uphold the truth. For we all know that the truth shall always and shall continue to set us free. Sadly, the truth has now become elusive with the proliferation of fake news, half-truths, and past-truths perpetrated by a throng of trolls of dubious characters and agenda. Today, instead of having a healthy dialogue on an online forum of ideas and opinions, we have a virtual mob on national and global platform promoting prejudice and hatred. Instead of a beautiful symphony of robust free market of ideas, what we have now is an ugly cacophony of garbage of lies. Father, we want to get rid of this malaise in our society. We want to subdue it. Enable us, Lord, to hold our ground and remain focused on the true north, well grounded on the basics of ethics and civility, upholding our time-honored values of liberty, freedom, and democracy. Father, may our discussions tonight help and guide us confront this evil in the social media. All this, Father, we ask in prayer in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiliw, kailas ang sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisingil, sa nagatak tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng bagaw, ay hinatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Matawad mo'y tagumpay na nagtitindig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may magtitindig. Lumalang araw ng walhaging pagsinta, mo'y langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya na pagkay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Happy Independence Day, mga kababayan, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Brother Lito, for your opening prayer. We are your co-presenters, SoulPH, the PPRG, and the Rotary Club Makati Central, headed by Mr. Ed Garma. The PPRG is the Public Policy Research Group, a think tank composed of eminent personalities, including former legislators, cabinet secretaries, and undersecretaries, sifting through various policy proposals and funneling the same to this Soul Search webinar series, now number 11. Members include those who have already presented the various policy-oriented webinars, and the chairman of the PPRG is none other than former Senator Joey Lina. Meantime, SoulPH, or Soul Philippines, of which yours truly is the executive director, is a non-partisan civil society organization composed of parents who are business executives and professionals seeking to rekindle the soul of our nation and towards our long-cherished values of makadiyos, makabansa, makatao, and makakalikasan. Our previous Soul Search webinars have included the West Philippine Sea, given by former Justice Antonio Carpio, inclusive economic growth by former NEDA Director General Cialito Habito, learning from the learning crisis, given by former Department of Education Secretary Brother Armin Luistro, Food for All by Feeding Farmers First, given by former Agriculture Secretary Leonie Montemayor, LGUs, crucial in defeating the COVID-19 pandemic, given by former Senator and former DILG Secretary Joey Lina, modernizing the Philippine health system for universal health care, given by former Health Secretary Manuel Dairit. Number 7 is climate proofing our common home, given by former Ateneo President Father Jose Ramon Jet Villarin of the Society of Jesus. Number 8, helping our poor during the pandemic and beyond, given by former DSWD Secretary Dinky Soliman. The 9th webinar was Internet for All Now Na, given by former Acting Secretary of DICT Eliseo Rio. And the last one was Workers in the Age of Fire and the Pandemic, given by former Labor Secretary Ruben Torres. And of course, tonight, we have the 11th installment. And we would also like to thank our strategic partners, the AIM Alumni Association of the Philippines, its Chairman Robert Manabat and Vice Chair Michael Sherwin Makatangay, the ICMA Student Chapter of the National College of Public Administration and Governance, headed by Ophel Odilao Bisnar, the Rotary District 3830, thanks to Governor Chacha Camacho, Indios Bravos Designs, thank you to Jerry and Sherbet Manalili for all our designs, and the Alcacid Total Entertainment and Artist Management Incorporated, or 18, for lending us, well, she's not here with us this evening, the guest soprano, Miss Lara Maige. But we would like to announce that at the end, at the very end of our webinar, we will be raffling off 2 concert tickets to Lara Maige's June 25 concert, Lara Maige, Queen of the Night. So please stick around. So only those who stick around and whose names are chosen will be declared winners. So 2 raffle tickets at the end of the concert. Right now, it is my privilege to introduce to you the chairman of Soul Philippines. He is a former senator. He's a former secretary of the Department of Interior and Local Government, and also former governor of Laguna Province, none other than the SoulPH chairman. Let's welcome Attorney Joey Lina.
Maraming salamat, Greg. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Good evening. Maligayang araw ng kalayaan sa ating lahat ng mga Pilipino. Tunay nga na malaya na tayo sa pananakop ng mga dayuhan. Subalit marami pa rin tayong mga problema na hindi tayo nakakalaya. Halimbawa, sa problema sa kagutuman, marami pa rin Pilipino ang nagugutom, maraming hindi nakapag-aaral, marami ang nagkakasakit na hindi nakakahanap ng atensyong medikal. Marami pa tayong problema sa ating kalikasan at sari-sari pang problema, at isa pang problema na may dadagdag natin ay ang pagkalat ng maling balita sa social media. Ito po ay isang malaking problema na dapat nating harapin. Tayong bansang Pilipinas ay isa sa tinatawag na sentro ng social media sa buong mundo. Malaking maitutulong ito sa atin. Sa anumang bansa, ang teknolohiya ay neutral, subalit ang masama o ang mabuti ay depende sa paggamit nito. Kaya ngayong araw na ito ng kalayaan, ating isipin kung paano tayo makalaya sa paglaganap ng mga mali o malisyosong balita, o sa isang positibong tanong ay kung paano ang social media ay maging kasangkapan sa pagpapalaganap ng katotohanan dito sa ating bansa. Katotohanan ay napakahalagang pundasyon ng isang demokrasya. Ang katotohanan ay kailangan ng bawat pamilyang Pilipino, ng bawat isa sa atin. Kailangan ng ating gobyerno upang sa ganon ang ating gobyerno, ang ating mga mamamayan ay makapagdesisyon sa mga bagay na may kinalaman sa ating buhay base sa katotohanan. At ang social media ay dapat tiyakin natin na maging kasangkapan ng pagpapalaganap ng katotohanan upang magamit natin ang katotohanan sa pagpapaunlad ng ating inang bayang Pilipinas. Ang una nating resource person sa araw na ito, sa ikalabing isang webinar ng SoulPH, ay ang Executive Editor and Head of News Digital, ABS-CBN Philippines. Siya po ay si Linda Humilia Abalos. At kasamahan ko po sa ABS sapagkat ako ay anchor person sa teleradyo sa programang Sagot Ko Yan. Si Linda po ay 30 taon nang may karanasan bilang isang journalist sa print and broadcast. And as I said earlier, currently leads the digital news platform of a legacy media business, overseeing a team of 80, a news website, several social pages and channels, and other digital products. Naging reporter din po ng malalaking pahayagan tulad ng Philippine Star, Manila Times, at ng Philippine Daily Inquirer. At malawak ang kanyang karanasan at nakapagtrabaho ng matagal sa ABS-CBN News bilang Chief of Reporters ng ABS-CBN News. Marami pong awards and recognition. Hindi ko na po babanggitin ang mga ito. At siya po ay nakatanggap ng mga fellowship galing sa Embassy of Canada at napili na awardee ng Lopez Achievement Award and Rewards Recognition. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome as our first resource person the Executive Editor and Head of News Digital, ABS-CBN Philippines, Linda Humilia Abalos. Welcome, Linda.
Maraming salamat, Senator Joey. I hope I have unmuted myself. Nakakahiya naman kung naturingang head ng digital ay hindi marunong mag-operate ng Zoom. But thank you so much for this privilege. I was pleasantly surprised to see how big this group is. So thank you for inviting me. Medyo ninenervous po ako. Pasensya na. I have not spoken before a huge crowd in a long while. I think my last show on television was in 2019, October 2019. So hindi na po ako sanay masyado sa ganito. And hearing the names of the distinguished speakers that went before me, before us, makes me even more nervous because, you know, they are all, sabi ko nga, cabinet level, justice, etc. So I hope I can do justice to, you know, what has gone before. Let me, please allow me to share my screen. Please let me know if it's showing up.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Salamat. Thank you, Senator. Let me. I was asked to talk about confronting fake news trolls, but I decided to use the title "Fighting Disinformation," and I will explain later on in the course of my talk. But let me open with. Allow me to open with this quote from Jonathan Swift, who, as many of us probably know, is the author, is better known as the author of Gulliver's Travels, but also a noted essayist and writer, an Anglo-English writer in the 1700s. Sabi ni Jonathan Swift, falsehood flies and the truth comes limping after it. If you expand it, if you get the longer quote for this, it continues on to say that, so that when men come to be undeceived, it is too late. The jest is over and the tale hath had its effect. So as you can see, this was said in 1710, but more than 300 years ago, it still perfectly encapsulates today's phenomenon, which is called fake news, and our sadly inadequate attempts to fight or simply deal with it. Sabi nga ng isang journalist, the use of propaganda is ancient, but never before has there been the technology to so effectively disseminate it. And that technology is the internet coupled with social media. So when we say fake news, this is something that all of us know. All of us who have experience with online news consumption, social media, etc. We all know what fake news is, or we all have an idea of what fake news is. But when you look at the research, when you look at the studies, there is no universally accepted or acknowledged or agreed upon definition of fake news. That's because it's a very, very broad concept that renders itself to be dependent on who's saying it. What's fake news to me might not be fake news to you or to the next person. So to be more scientific about it, researchers prefer to categorize information into several or into smaller chunks or smaller bit sizes and define them. So there's a lot of so-called fake news or types of fake news out there, but let me zero in on three of those types. And these are definitions that are contained in many of the researches. One is misinformation, and misinformation is false information shared without the intent to mislead. It contains and describes false content, but the person sharing the content does not realize it contains false or misleading information or may have reported it in error. So under this category, probably you would say that ito yung mga halimbawa, yung may lumabas sa balita, halimbawa sa ABS-CBN, sinabi may dumating na 100,000 na bakuna, pero yung dumating pala 200,000. So this is one category of misinformation. You know that there is no intention to mislead people, except that it might have been erroneous at the start, because as you know, the news cycle is such that sometimes you don't have the information right away. Or it could also be yung mga sinishare ng mga kababayan natin na minsan out of their superstitious beliefs, out of their religious beliefs, or probably because of they don't have enough experience or information about certain things, ay lumalabas na misinformation. But you know that they have no intention to mislead people. It's just that yun ang alam nila. The second type of so-called fake news is malinformation. Now, malinformation is genuine information, typically private and revealing, that may be distributed to cause harm to a person's reputation in furtherance of a campaign objective. So, ito naman, genuine ang information, but it's the way that it's presented that there is some intention to cause harm. Usually, the things that fall under this category, the types of so-called fake news that fall under this category are the political propaganda. So you know that, political rivals, they try to come up with information against each other. And alam mo naman din na merong katotohanan yan. But sometimes it's also the way that is being presented that renders it with some degree of falsehood or some degree of malicious intent. The third type of so-called fake news is disinformation. Disinformation is manufactured information that is deliberately created or disseminated with the intent to cause harm. It is false, it is manipulated, but it is knowingly shared to cause harm, or is made with reckless disregard of likely harm. So all these three, there's a lot more out there. There are a lot of other categories, but for our purposes, let's talk about these three. And you can say that each of these categories has pose some degree of danger or risk to the target, number one, and also to the consumer of the content, the person who is reading this content. But I think for tonight's discussion, we would like to focus on this information because for me, ito yung mas dangerous kasi number one, manufactured yung information so hindi siya totoo. Number two, sadya siyang ginagawa kahit alam mo nang hindi siya totoo. And number three, there is that intent to cause harm, whether it's the subject or the target of the misinformation or the public who are consuming that particular information. So sabi ng mga researchers, disinformation campaigns mobilize large numbers of individuals or groups to interact with the content, which then spurs others to share and post content. That is how this information works in social media. Just as an aside, before we proceed, I said earlier that I chose not to use the term fake news because, and this is the reason, as a journalist, and I think I speak for other journalists out there, I am not comfortable with the label fake news because news is a product of journalism, and journalism is the search for truth, is the search for accuracy. That one of the tenets of journalism is accuracy. So parang in itself, the term fake news is an oxymoron. It's a contradiction in terms. So sabi nga ni Ellen Tordesillas, isa sa mga veteranong kasamahan namin and president of Vera Files, which is involved in fact-checking this information on social media. Pag sinabi natin news, balita, dapat totoo. Bago natin ipukul sa madla, sinisigurado natin tama ang balita. So ngayon, lalagyan mo yung term ng fake news. So meron bang peking totoo? The other thing that makes us all uncomfortable about the term fake news is that it is vulnerable to political manipulation, depending on who is saying it. It is often deployed to mislead readers and viewers and undermines legitimate journalism and reporting. Kasi parang sinasabi mo na, news can be faked or falsified. So right there and then, you are undermining journalism, you are undermining news reporting. So ang payo po ng mga eksperto, those who have researched this issue in the past several years, it is a term that should be avoided, and it is better to define the content in question as disinformation, misinformation, or malinformation. Having said that, let's just take a look at how this information affects us. Apart from the obvious that people can get hurt because of this information, katulad nung nangyari sa Myanmar, a lot of damage can be done, like katulad nung nangyari sa, for instance, in when they attacked this Ebola center. This information, sabi ng International Center for Not-for-Profit Law, this information is distorting politics, it's sowing confusion, it is undermining trust in democratic institutions, it is discrediting civil society, and it is fueling a state of information disorder. So siguro pag nung una kong nabasa ito, inisip ko, probably in some far away, remote place, some developing country where technology is not that good and democracy is not yet mature, probably this is happening. But when you think about it, this thing is happening even in developed countries like the US, and even closer to home, this is happening right now. Kasi, for example, when disinformation agents or operators say there was cheating in elections without basis or shred of truth, they are distorting politics. When they accuse the news media of being biased just because they disagree with what's being reported, they are undermining trust in democratic institutions. when they red tag or hurl unfounded accusations against people's organizations and ordinary do-gooders, they are discrediting civil society. And when they have muddled social issues enough such that people no longer know whether to trust or not to trust information found online, they are fueling a state of information disorder. So this is not something that is happening in some far off place, or that's not going to happen to us in some not for so many years or decades from now. This is something that's already taking place in our midst. So what have we done so far? How have we responded to this information? This is something that has been happening, for several years now, and I think to everyone's credit, governments and people's organizations and even social media platforms have been taking steps to deal with it, to mitigate its effects. One is that governments and states have enacted fake news laws, anti-fake news laws, or laws making it a crime to disseminate so-called fake news. Social media platforms have started to provide background or related information about some posts and pages. So when you look at, for example, a Facebook post of ABS-CBN News, you'll probably see a small label or a small tag at the bottom that says about this website. And so it gives you information about the ABS-CBN News website. They've also hired fact checkers, and as I mentioned earlier, Verifiles is one of the fact checkers that has been hired by Facebook in the Philippines. In recent years, they've also been taking down networks of accounts. You probably have heard of Twinmark Enterprises, whose network of accounts was taken down sometime in late 2018, I think, after they were found to engage in coordinated inauthentic behavior. An example of this coordinated inauthentic behavior is that, one Facebook page posts something, and then it is echoed, copied, retweeted, mirrored by the other pages that is also owned by the same group to make it look like maraming nag-i-interact sa page na, sa post na yon, sa information na yon. And therefore, kapag ka nangyayari yon, it gets surfaced in the news or in the feeds, the Facebook feeds of people. News organizations, academic stakeholders, advocacy groups like SoulPH have embarked on a media, internet, or digital literacy campaign to inform and guide netizens in critically analyzing information, especially on social media, for accuracy, credibility, or evidence of bias. All of these are well-meaning and all aim to combat disinformation, but obviously, and sadly, all these steps have not been enough, because otherwise we wouldn't be talking about the problem of disinformation right now. Some of these steps have also been a little bit problematic. Researchers and experts do not recommend enacting anti-fake news laws because, number one, as I have pointed out, there is no uniform or universally accepted definition. So it's very broad, it's very vague, and if people in power are the ones dictating what is fake and what is not fake, it can be used to harass those who are against the powers that be, against the government in this case. Second, what if it's the government or its agents and operatives who are engaged in this information? How do you go after them? So the conclusion is that governments cannot be the arbiters of truth, and creating or enacting sweeping anti-fake news laws is not the solution to disinformation. Ito naman pong ginagawa ng social media, ito naman pong ginagawa ng ilang social media platforms, while again, well-meaning, it just cannot catch up or keep up with how this information is being churned out on a daily basis across all borders all over the world. They take down networks of accounts found to engage in coordinated inauthentic behavior only for those same accounts, or maybe iba na ang pangalan, but same people who are running it, to show up, a few months after, because it's just so easy to put up all those Facebook pages and troll farms and bots and dummy accounts. So fact checkers that are hired are usually fact checking the media organizations, but these are the least likely to engage in this information. It's difficult to fact check and go after. It's difficult for the fact checkers to fact check and go after, for example, the bloggers or the vloggers or those shadowy anonymous pages that are actually engaged in this information. And then finally, yung labeling, providing related information about some posts and pages, because of the sheer volume of tweets and Facebook posts and even YouTube videos out there, it's only the obvious or the famous who are being policed. Some of you may be familiar about what Twitter did to former President Donald Trump during the US elections of 2020, when or early this year, actually after the elections of 2020, early this year, when Donald Trump tweeted that the elections have been rigged and that he has been cheated. So what Twitter did was to label his post, his tweet, with this claim is disputed, and therefore this tweet cannot be replied to, shared, or retweeted. Pero, you know, not everybody is a Donald Trump, and most of the more insidious disinformation actors out there are actually people who are not known, and therefore they are able to operate even more, you know, smoothly or easily. So obviously, there's still a lot to be done, and again, there have been recommendations to come up with other ways to fight this information. So what else can be done? Legal experts have pointed out that there are actually existing laws on defamation, harassment, fraud, and damages from intention to cause harm against those behind disinformation campaigns and even social media companies that can be used against them. These are low-hanging fruits that are already there. You don't need to enact them. You just need to enforce them properly. You just need to enforce them fairly and make sure that the actors of disinformation are targeted. Ang nangyayari kasi, itong mga defamation, minsan harassment, fraud, yan yung ginagamit laban dun sa mga legitimate sources of information naman. For example, journalists are always subjected to defamation lawsuits. So, and yet, walang nagkakaso ng ganyan masyado against disinformation operators and even social media companies na involved or have not done anything to stop you know, the proliferation of fake news. So there has to be, experts say, there has to be a way to not only attack the content or fact check the false content, but also hit the actors of this information. And this is where you use these existing laws against them. Another thing that can be done on the legal side is on the regulatory side, is to enact new laws targeting disinformation. And there's one model that they're looking at. California has an anti-bot law to make it difficult for disinformation actors to push content through automated or fake dummy accounts and consequently limit the spread of disinformation. As you know, itong mga disinformation, itong mga nagpapakalat ng disinformation, do so by using automated bots and fake or dummy accounts in order to amplify their content and to make it easier for the unsuspecting public to pick it up. Because as you know, the algorithm of social media platforms, in particular Facebook, is such that the more a piece of content or a certain post is interacted on, meaning maraming nagko-comment, maraming nagla-like, maraming nag-repost or nag-share, the higher the possibility, so the more likely that it shows up in the news feed of other people or in the Facebook feed of other people. Kaya nakikita mo, pag lumabas sa feed mo, viral na siya. Kasi pina-viral na siya or in-interact na siya ng mga mismong bots and fake accounts and dummy accounts at troll farm employed by the actors of disinformation. So when you get them to stop doing this or prevent them from doing this, you are undermining their technological advantage. Kasi ito yung technological advantage nila eh. The use of bots, the use of dummy accounts, the use of troll farms. So undermine their technological advantage. Another proposal is to enact or enforce transparency laws to make social media users aware of where content comes from and which entity is supporting the production and publication of that content. So kasi when you enable users to understand where content originates from or who paid for it, it's gonna be people are in a better position to make a judgment if it is something that is accurate, it is genuine, as opposed to something that has been manufactured. So enabling users to understand it is particularly relevant during elections and other political events, as online advertising strategies have become a crucial part of political campaigns to influence public debate. So in recent years, I think we've already seen some ads taken out by politicians, lumalabas talaga yung mga pangalan nila. Or more recently, Twitter, I think, has already said that it will not allow political propaganda from will only allow posting of political propaganda from verified users. It has also started labeling Twitter accounts that are considered to be state-controlled or state-affiliated. So therefore, when you look at, for example, Twitter and you see Xinhua News Agency, it says there, China state-affiliated media. More proposals to fight fake news. For social media platforms, they should work more to boost the visibility of credible news content and not just leave it to algorithm, especially when such content seeks to fact-check this information on social media. As we said earlier, the algorithm on Facebook is such that the more that a content is interacted with, the more likely it will show up on people's feeds. This is why, the purveyors of this information use bots, fake or dummy accounts, and troll farms to amplify their content. But because most media organizations, or at least as far I know that ABS-CBN News does not we don't resort to bots, we don't resort to fake or dummy accounts. We are unable to compete toe-to-toe with the disinformation pages. So sabi nga, falsehood flies and the truth comes limping after it. Kalat na yung kasinungalingan, kalat na yung disinformation, kahit anong gawin ng news organizations to correct or to fact check, ay hindi talaga kami nakakahabol. Another proposal directed at social media platforms is for them to invest more in countries where they operate or earn the most and where people are most vulnerable to disinformation by paying some form of tax or fee whose proceeds can fund media literacy courses for all segments of the population. So, if you look at if you Google it or if you research it, does Facebook pay taxes? In the Philippines, or where does Facebook pay taxes? You'll see that obviously it pays taxes in the US because it is a US company, and it pays taxes in 11 other countries where there are subsidiaries or where they're said to be subsidiaries of Facebook. But according to our own government officials, Facebook does not pay income tax in the Philippines, and yet we are the biggest user. The Philippines is the biggest user of Facebook. And in the Philippines, there are a lot of people who have fallen victim to the disinformation that is going around on Facebook. So there is a bill actually in the House right now. And I think it is already in plenary. Seeking to tax the digital transactions, and that includes Facebook. Kumbaga, ang gustong mangyari, magbayad yung Facebook ng income tax sa Pilipinas because when you really think about it, Facebook earns a lot in the Philippines. For every video that you watch on Facebook, for every advertisement that you see whenever you scroll through your newsfeed, kumikita sila dyan. And yet, there is nothing by way of income tax that we get, kahit man lang to mitigate or to use to fund media literacy courses for all the segments of the population. And media literacy is important to build resilience, to teach and guide everyone on how to be more critical and discerning in analyzing whether information is accurate or true, or whether it is a falsehood. Other proposal, expand the labeling of pages and accounts, especially those with large numbers of followers, to include geographical location and other information that would allow users to better evaluate the content's credibility. So this is similar to the other proposal to sort of compel or force them to do this. Ito naman, social media platforms can also do this voluntarily on their own if they are really concerned with fighting disinformation. Bakit importanteng malaman where certain posts, certain tweets, certain Facebook posts are coming from? Because a lot of the disinformation, the troll farms are actually taking place or hosted outside the country, outside the Philippines. For example, in last year, a Facebook page there was a Facebook page that was named the Concerned Sons of Texas, and it had a large following and consistently published this information according to the researchers. However, and it was very active in the huge debate in the US running up to the US elections. However, it was actually run out of a Russian troll farm. So parang sabi ng mga nag-aaral, if Facebook properly labeled it as a Russian account, would it have so effectively disseminated in disinformation? If you know where it's coming from, at least you will know whether to believe it or not. In the 2016 Philippine election campaign, hundreds of thousands of users accessing news websites in the Philippines were traced to Russia. Kasi at that time, nandun po yung mga troll farms. Although ngayon, nandito na rin sila. Marami na pong gustong mag-farming sa Pilipinas. So, these are things that social media companies can do on their own. No need to compel them, for as long as, they're sincere in their efforts to fight this information. So marami pa po yan. But what does all of these tell us? It tells us that fighting disinformation is not the job of one sector alone. Experts believe it requires a whole of society approach and 3 action plans. Number 1 is hitting the disinformation actors. At yan po lalabas yung mga new laws targeting, troll farms, bots, etc. Hitting the disinformation actors. I'm sorry. Diyan po lalabas yung mga laws, You can sue them for harassment, you can sue them for fraud, you can sue them for defamation, and stop them from, coming back to the platform. Number 2 is to undermine their technological advantage, as we said. Stop them from coming up with creating all those fake and dummy accounts and troll farms. And number 3, building their targets' resilience. And how do we do this? Through media literacy campaigns and courses, especially in schools. Kasi ito po yung magtuturo sa mga kababayan natin how to critically discern or critically analyze content that they see on social media. By doing all of these things and more, advocates believe that advocates can meaningfully and significantly fight disinformation while protecting the free exchange of ideas and freedom of expression. So, hit the actors, undermine their technological advantage, and build resilience. Before I end, let me show you some of the resources if you're still interested to read more about this information and efforts to fight them. These are very, very good research papers. And I wanted to show you as diverse a list as possible. A lot also of my presentation came from these researches. And so with that, I would like to thank everyone for listening to me tonight. I hope that we will all do our share in the effort to fight disinformation. And maraming salamat po for this singular privilege. And please stay safe online and offline. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. And we'll now proceed with our second presenter. So I'd like to call back Senator Lina to introduce our next presenter. Senator?
All right. Our second resource person is a colleague of mine in the Manila Bulletin, is known as Manong Art. He's Art Samaniego Jr. Manong Art. In the Philippines tech industry, is the technology editor and the information and communications technology head of the Manila Bulletin. He is also a certified Google IT support specialist, an IBM certified cybersecurity analyst, and ISO/IEC 2701 certified information security associate. Art Samaniego Jr. is the Manila Bulletin's resident geek and recognized as one of the country's go-to guy for technology-related issues. At present, Art Samaniego Jr. embraces the advocacy that fights fake and unverified news, following his motto of fighting fake news one story at a time. He patiently scans the internet for any fake news and scams and debunks them one by one. He is also doing his part on cybersecurity, where he works with government and private institutions to make the Philippine internet a safer place for all. So Manong Art will give us practical tips on how to detect hacking, how to protect oneself if you're being victimized by cyber bullies. That area he will cover. So let us give Manong Art a big round of applause. Use your icon, clap your hands. Welcome, Manong Art.
Maraming salamat, Senator. Let me share my screen. Ayan. So I titled my presentation, Anatomy of Fake News. But before we proceed, I would like to give tips on how to keep yourself and your loved ones safe while using your phones and computers. Follow these simple tips and you would be safe and protected while exploring the information jungle we call the internet. We all need to protect ourselves because once our account is compromised, hindi lang tayo yung affected, but also our loved ones and those people we engage with while online. As cyber criminals could also get their personal information and other details. Ang cybercrime kasi para yung COVID-19. If you get it, you're not the only one who would be affected. So like the coronavirus that could infect people na mga may close contact ka, being a victim of cybercrime could also put your families and friends in danger of being scammed online. So pati sila naapektuhan. Oops. Okay. First, think before you click. There are more than 1 billion websites out there, and more than 2 million of these are dangerous websites created by malicious individuals. When you click an unknown link from your email or text messages or pinadala sa Facebook, there's a danger that your financial and personal information could be compromised. That one click could cause you a big problem and could ruin you financially. So, isipin natin, you might just be a click away from a malicious website. So always think before clicking that link, tapos tanong natin sarili natin, kailangan ko ba ito i-click ang link na to at kailangan ko bang i-share? Kung hindi, stay away from those links. Second, use two-factor authentication. This is an extra layer of protection for your accounts. Use this in all your accounts. So even if hackers get hold of your password, they could not take over your account kasi they would be asked for an additional information na ikaw lang nakakaalam. So tawag dito, two-factor authentication. Third, phishing scams. In 2020 alone, there are more than 1.3 million phishing sites. All of these sites have one purpose: to trick you into giving sensitive information. Many of these phishing attacks come from Facebook via Facebook-supported scams. Ito yung nakikita natin na you need to update your messenger so that you will get the colored or gold messenger. Pero ito mga phishing attempts to. So para maiwasan to, verify by checking the URL if it is indeed coming from the site it's claiming to be from. Fourth, track your digital footprint. Always monitor where your accounts was last opened. So merong sa settings ng Facebook, makikita mo kung saan ka last na nag-open. Pag di mo kakilala, you need to log out those accounts. So pag may mga suspicious places. Tapos, keep up to date. Always update the latest version of your OS. Device and software updates are annoying but very essential. So lahat ng mga na-hack, usually using old version of their OS. So kaya mag-ingat tayo. And lastly, back up your data. In case of a hack attack or loss of device, you can just simply migrate to a new device. So eto yun, sundan nyo lang itong mga to, you will be safe. And by the way, bagong-bagong balita ngayon. I just posted about an hour ago. If you happen to volunteer for the One Sama, the app of One Sambayan, Sambayan of the Sambayan group, please check your accounts. Your details might be compromised. Details including I'll check details including Apple ID, address, birth date, email, Facebook ID, full name, Google ID, mobile number, password, profile picture, username, and profession could be compromised. Ito yung in-input mo nung nag-volunteer ka sa Sambayan app. So be careful with this one. So I coordinated with National Privacy Commission and of course Sambayan, and they took down now the app. So wala nang app ngayon. Naka-hold na yung app. Anyway, let's go to our topic. No. So this is the definition of fake news. For us who work in the cybersecurity industry, ito lang yung definition namin of fake news. We did not categorize. So basta news stories that are false, the story is fabricated with no verifiable facts, sources, or quotes, we call it fake news. In other words, drawing, invento, kalokohan. So fake news is created to misinform or deceive you, to influence your views, push an agenda, or cause to ask you questions, then share that story to others. Kasi pag sinyer mo yan, kumikita ang mga online publishers. So the characteristics of fake news are this: it's factually inaccurate. So intentional lie siya that does not usually go beyond one source. Isa lang ang source niya. Pag tinitingnan mo, wala na siyang ibang source. usually the source is aware that the story is false para baguhin mo ang opinion mo on a certain topic. And it is optimized for sharing. Madaling i-share. Kasi pag madaling i-share, very shareable siya. Ikaw, hindi ka na nag-iisip, click ka lang ng click, go. So the source would try to make it as viral as possible so that it will be shared on social media to increase the reach. Ang problema nito, fake news are mostly shared by older people, yung mga titos and titas natin. Ito yung mga 40 years old and above. Kasama na ako, 40 years old and above. And of course, it targets your bias or prejudice. So, it attacks your emotion. Tapos meron siyang, para ma-force tayo to do confirmation bias. Yeah, we favor information that confirms what we previously believed. We reject information and data that go against our belief. So pag meron tayong ganun, sinishare kagad natin. Ang problema, Facebook has the technology to know that. So gagawin niya lang, pag ikaw, you always share the story of Glenn Robredo. So gagawin yan, meron yung pwede kang i-target ni Facebook para ma-receive mo yung mga sponsored post kung saan ka interesado. So purveyors of fake news would capitalize on our biases, and Facebook has tools to target us. So stories that are not true, but ito yung catchy. Not all stories that are not telling the truth are fake news. So of course may fabrication. It's an act of coming up with story out of thin air. So ito yung mga invento. Then we have the hoax, false information, deliberately fabricated. Pero meron tinatawag na satire. It's a parody where the source present the story as true to entertain the readers. Pero usually ang mga sites na ito nagsasabi na satire site, satirical site. But this can be fake news if you believe the joke and share it to your friends as true. Pero the author has no intention to cause harm, just to make fun of situation or incident. Ito yung mga dapat natin tandaan. A news story is not fake simply because it is impolite or inconvenient. A news story that you don't agree with isn't fake news. Kasi truth is not about you. And then, a story that you find uncomfortable is not fake news story. Again, hindi kasi sa atin umiikot ang mundo. Ito yung dapat nating tandaan. So, hindi fake news ang mga bagay na to. Ang satire, hindi siya fake news kasi even if it is presented as true because the goal of the story is to entertain readers and not to trick people. But if yun nga, pag sinare mo to as a fact, then you are the source of fake news. So sa Pilipinas, meron akong sinusundan na satirical site, ito yung Adobo Chronicles. Check nyo www.adobochronicles.com. Honest reporting mistakes. So, an error is not deliberate, ibig sabihin hindi siya fake news. If this happens to legitimate news sources, ABS-CBN, GMA, Bulletin, Star, Inquirer, a correction will be issued immediately. Also, if the story is presented by the journalist you don't like, hindi ibig sabihin fake news yan. This is how to spot fake news. So consider the source. Sino ba ang source nito? Pag isa lang ang source, so I always tell my students to double source. Double source meaning, pero kang balitang nakita, pag galing lang to sa isang website na medyo hindi pa kilalang website at binalita niya, pag siya lang merong ganung balita, be careful, baka fake yan. Baka false information yan. So you need to have another source that's not related to your source so that you could verify. So consider your source. Pangalawa, check the author. Sino ba ang author nito? Ang dami nagki-claim na magagaling na author pero hindi siya talaga authority sa subject na yun. So you better check the author. And of course, eto ngayon, check the date. lately may mga sinishare na story about COVID-19 quarantine categories na nung 2020 pa. So you better check the date. Next, check your biases. So naapektuhan ba ang judgment mo ng mga biases mo? Also, read beyond the headline or read beyond the story. Clickbait ang tawag doon sa mga story na yung mga outrageous stories na minsan sinishare kagad natin. And dapat may supporting sources yung balita. Also, consider if it's a joke. Baka satire nga lang yung nabasa mo. And lastly, you need to ask the experts. Maghanap ng mga nakakaalam kung ano ang katotohanan. Okay, how to verify news? Ito. Verify using multiple sources. Ito yung you need to double source. Ngayon, ang tawag na yung triangulate. So tatlo na yung sources mo. Kasi there are only two things na para sa mga journalists na we don't need to double source. Una, if the statement or the news is coming from the spokesperson of the government, of the agency. So you don't need to double source kasi sa kanya na nanggaling at nandun ka. Pangalawa, if it is coming from an official document galing sa census, so you don't need to double source. But naging witness ka lang and you don't know the background of the story, you need to double source. So verify using multiple sources. So of course, you verify with Manila Bulletin, Inquirer, Star, check reliable news organizations like GMA and ABS-CBN. Kasi we have the responsibility to do all these things. Kailangan namin mag-double source, kailangan sigurado kami. Pero in the point na nagkamali kami, what we do is correct immediately that mistake. Okay, check social media news. Always check the source, see who else is sharing, examine the facts. Don't take social media at face value. So dapat tignan muna natin yan. At ito pala yung mga fact checkers na sinusundan ko. So Snopes, factcheck.org, PolitiFact, the fact checker. Ito yung mga international fact checkers. Okay, remember this. Ito yung mga dapat nating tandaan so that will be not a victim of false information. So double source. To verify the news. Read beyond the headlines because some headlines are just clickbaits. Always check the URL. Ito yung website address. Pag sinabi niya galing siya sa ABS-CBN, pero pag nakita mo yung URL, yung website address na hindi ABS-CBN, kahit gumagamit pa yan ng logo ng ABS-CBN, be careful. It might be fake news. And lastly, you need to check the date. Baka lumang balita na yung sinishare mo. Ito ang bonus information. So people think that they get hacked or they become a victim of cybercrime because of these hackers, very sophisticated people attacking you. But in reality, nahahack tayo o nako-compromise yung mga accounts natin. Ito yung katotohanan kasi ang dali nating maniwala sa mga raffle. We immediately share and believe what we see on Facebook. When they say that update is available, we click that, and when that link asks us to log in, we give our login credentials. Pero kung titignan mo yung nasa ibabaw, it's coming from a site called blogspot.com. We get hacked. Our accounts are compromised because we share videos. This one is claiming to be from TV Patrol. Pero when you hover your mouse on that YouTube link, hindi siya galing sa TV Patrol. And then it would ask you to update your messenger. Tingnan yung giveaway. Wrong spelling. And then you will log in without checking the URL for the website address. Ang kasunod nito, ang daming na biktima this past week because of these things. Namimigay ng telepono. Congratulations, nanalo ka ng Toyota Corolla. Mag-reply ka lang dun sa survey. Now, once you click, if you're using a PC, the cyber criminals will crawl inside your computer and collect data about you. Eto pa, ang daming nabibiktima, free Rolex, 100th anniversary celebration. If you answer those questions, mangungulekta yan ng data about you. Ito ang number one culprit ngayon sa mga na-hack. It says GCash advisory. Pero when you click to verify your account, it would give you a fake GCash website. At pag naglagay ka ng data, ubos ang laman ng GCash mo. Now back to fake news. Ito yon. So the internet is the world's best fact checker and world's best bias confirmer, often at the same time. So sabay sila. So kaya we really need to be careful. We really need to think critically in order to stop these people from spreading false information. Ayun, that's it. Thank you very much. Sir?
Thank you very much, Art. We'll give you some time to rest. In the meantime, we are fortunate because we have some very young reactors. Now we shall have them in succession of 3 minutes each. And after the three of them give their reactions or further their questions, we will then have a roundtable discussion moderated by Senator Lina and to include also our audience and the chat box. Before I proceed with the first introduction, I'd like to shout out to some friends who are also here participating. Brother P.V. Belly, the president of the Brotherhood of Christian Businessmen and Professionals. Brother Mars Catan, the Federation of Transparochial Charismatic Communities. So these are very huge groups. Thank you for your interest. We also have, I saw them, two former congressmen. Congressman Ashley Asedillo, welcome po, and former Congressman Willie Villarama. So I'd like to proceed to our first reactor from the youth sector, our youth leaders. Our first reactor is a major in Bachelor of Arts in Legal Management at the University of Santo Tomas. She is also the president of the UST Central Student Council. So this is the overall student council. She is the president. Let us welcome for her 3-minute reaction and response, Crisia Mileni Bricio. Crisia, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Sir Greg, for that. So first of all, I would like to thank SoulPH for inviting me tonight, and good evening din po sa ating very interactive audience. So I learned a lot from Sir Art and Ma'am Linda earlier, but is it possible if I ask a question to Ma'am Linda first before I give my reaction to Sir Greg?
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Okay.
You can ask it now and then she can answer too.
Okay. So earlier po kasi Ma'am Linda stated that one thing we can do to fight disinformation or the spreading of fake news is to enact laws. So question ko lang po, the more that we enact laws which aims to regulate the dissemination of information to prevent fake news or disinformation from spreading, where do we draw the line between preventing fake news from spreading and still giving the people their freedom to express? Paano po ba natin masisiguro na hindi natin mahadlangan yung karapatan nilang na magsaad ng opinion while preventing the spread of fake news?
Okay, for purposes of flow, we will have Linda answer that at the tail end. So we'll have your reaction first, Crisia. Go ahead.
Okay. Sige po. So ayun po yung katanungan ko. So ayun nga po, sa dami na po ng natutunan ko kay Ma'am Linda and Sir Art earlier. At totoo nga po na social media plays a huge role sa ating pagkamulat, especially on news, relevant news, information. Kasi doon nga po nakasalalay kung saan tayo kumukuha ng balita. So our engagements, our interactions in social media, especially Facebook, kung saan lagi majority of the Filipinos are in, they make up our own echo chamber. So doon natin nakukuha yung balita na naka-tailor or naka-anchor sa sarili nating interactions. And the more that we interact with fake news or disinformation, the more na yun din yung mas nakukuha natin, na mas nahahadlangan yung sarili natin na makakuha ng totoong balita or ng tunay na impormasyon. And sabi din to ni Sir Art kanina, number one rule talaga of being a netizen or being in social media is to think before you click. Ayun, nasanay na nga po tayo that we just read the headlines and we just immediately read the comments or the interactions of people na hindi na natin binabasa yung buong article, na iniisip natin na nakuha na natin yung buong story just by reading it sa ating timeline. So we immediately share it to our relatives, to everyone that we know, to our friends, not knowing that the article contains false information. So I think we're like hindi sila to blame fully, since ayun nga po, based on our engagements and interactions, yun na yung nabuo sa ating echo chamber, na the idea that we think, yun na yung mas nakikita natin lagi sa social media. So ayun, trolls are everywhere and fake news is indeed prevalent, and so we have a lot to work on para mapigilan natin yung pag-spread ng fake news. So as youth, as part of the youth sector, marami talagang magagawa ang kabataan pagdating dito. Unang-una, ang pagdala ng diskurso sa ibang paraan. So tulad nga ng nasabi ko kanina, malaki ang ginagampanan ng social media sa pagbibigay ng impormasyon, pero isa din ito sa kumbaga pinakamadaling paraan para makapagbigay tayo ng maling impormasyon. Kaidaan natin yung diskurso sa ibang pamamaraan, tulad na lamang ng pagdadala nito sa hapagkainan, sa kasama ng ating mga pamilya, sa kumbaga sa tindahan, sa simpleng pamimili natin ng ating pang-araw-araw na kagamitan, ay may hayag natin sa mga tao na aandon kung ano nga ba yung tunay na nangyayari, hindi nila nakikita sa social media at hindi na nila napapansin sa balita. So bukod sa pagdadala ng diskurso sa ibang pamamaraan, mas gamitin natin yung kakayahan natin at enerhiya ng kabataan, kumbaga, na mas i-educa ang mga tao tungkol sa mga nakikita nila sa social media, at kung maaari gumawa ng mas madali na paraan para mas madaling ma-fact check, kumbaga, yung mga artikulo o mga nababasa natin sa social media. Naisip ko nga, dahil mostly nga nang tina-target ng etong fake news or ng mga trolls or bots ay yung mga yung certain age, 40 years old or above, sabi nga po ni Sir Art, ay sila din yung kumbaga hindi na mas nakakaligtaan na nila yung mag-check ng double source or mag-triple source man. So immediately they share the articles knowing that yun na nga yung akala nilang tama. So I think as the youth or at the technology sector or yung mga developers natin can implement or produce an app or something which can automatically fact check the news or articles that they are reading. So ayun po. Again, thank you so much, Ma'am Linda and Sir Art, for sharing your knowledge earlier. I really learned a lot po.
Thank you very much, Krisha. And Linda will be answering your question in a little while. But we have to go now to our second reactor. He is a broadcast media arts and studies major at the University of the Philippines, MASCOM. He is also the Vice President for Publicity and Creatives of the UP Radio Circle. Let's welcome John Gabriel Gab Garcia. Gab, take the floor.
Ayan. Good evening po. Good evening, Sir Greg. And good evening to everyone. And ayan, just like usual, I want to thank SoulPH and of course, si Ma'am Linda and si Sir Art. Ayan. Ang interesting kasi what they discuss is actually tinuturo din sa curriculum ngayon sa MASCOM. Ayan. Diba? Parang ang sabi pa nga, tayo ay ngayon nasa post-truth society. Nagbago na lahat actually, even our, sabi ko kanina, even our curriculum as MASCOM student, naging part na sa curriculum namin yung ethics. I think meron kaming required 3 ethics classes ngayon sa sa MASCOM. And part din ng curriculum namin is being taught how to be media literate, how to spot fake news. We invited verifiers in one of our classes and being trained to be the next fact checkers of the society. But one interesting reading we have was about post-truth politics and how truth and fact-checking is not enough antidote for disinformation at saka sa effect ng disinformation. Joan Keane, if I remember, emphasized monitory democracy where the public monitors and scrutinizes the power of government. Gone are the days that tayo ay passive audiences. Diba? Actually, if magbabasa kayo ng mga articles about mass communication tsaka media influences and mga research articles, makikita nyo na may shift with how researchers and the academe view the audiences. Before tayo as audiences, we are passive consumers. Diba? Parang ideological state apparatus. Pag nanonood tayo ng sine, one way lang siya. Nanonood tayo and kinoconsume natin yung pinapanood natin. But now we are part of the producing aspect of mass communication. Alex Bruns coined the term producage kasi tayo ay producers and users ng social media, which gives us more responsibility more than ever. With that, kailangan natin ma-realize as producers, for a lack of a better term, no, na nagpo-produce at nagko-consume ng media. Now we have the power to combat disinformation, and this is what monitory democracy is all about. Making sure that the public knows that we have the power, we have the right to assert scrutiny and pagpupuna sa government natin. And ito yung magko-combat ng possible disinformation sa post-truth society. Again, for example, ABS-CBN, di ba, sa journalists, I think ABS-CBN is one of the ABS-CBN News is one of the news organizations who successfully redefined what journalist means, di ba, na veer away na tayo from just reporting the what, who, where, how of the news, but hindi na lang tayo basta naging mouthpiece na nag-report, nag-ano rin tayo ng fact-checking, background, ano nga ba yung sinabi niya last year, ganyan. Kasi there's this new role of journalists sa post-truth society. Also, important to consider din siguro yung sa trolls. Ayan. Since ayan din yung isa sa mga topic kanina, no, na some of the trolls are bots, yes, but interestingly, some of the bots are real people. And to be honest, in this economy, no, na nasa pandemic tayo ngayon, nagkakaroon ng malalang retrenchment sa lahat ng sectors of society. The more na nakakaakit siguro sa ibang tao talaga yung ganitong kumbaga easy money. Kasi 'di ba, very disappointing, no? Pero we have to, again, part of monitory democracy is to make sure to inform them na to make people more participative. Kasi the more na participative sila, the more na naka-question nila kung ano yung truth. Truth about education, truth about healthcare, truth about agrarian reform, at marami pang iba. We have to remind people and ourselves as well that we have the power to change. And of course, nandiyan din yung education. Naniniwala ko na dapat siguro bata pa lang aware na sila sa rights nila, and we have to reconstruct institutions that hinder people to assert their rights and freedom. Ayan. Hindi powerless ang masa, kumbaga. For example, sa Mindanao, di ba, yung mga kapatid nating lumad, ayan, aware naman sila sa rights nila sa lands, rights to education. Pero delikado kasi mag-assert ng right, especially in this administration, di ba, with anti-terror law and such. But how do we combat the truth then? So siguro let's ask ourselves, how can we establish an environment or a society where questioning and criticizing isn't taboo? enacting laws against false information is one step, but we have to see the bigger picture and enact laws to create safe spaces for criticisms, scrutiny, and citizens, hindi na lang media, dahil part na tayo ng media, citizens as the watchdogs. So, ayan, thank you so much again, Ma'am Linda and Sir Art, for the wonderful discussion. And hopefully, sa ating open forum, mas lalim pa natin yung discussion natin about this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gab. Very provocative questions, which we would be answering later. We now go to our third youth reactor. He's an AB Political Science major from UP Diliman and the Vice President of the membership for the UP Political Society. Let's welcome Jesse Jeman Malibiran. Jeman?
Hello po, good evening. Ayan, good evening po sa inyong lahat. Hello po, thank you Sir Greg, thank you Ma'am Linda, and to Sir Art, and thank you to the former reactors. No? I really learned a lot from all of your sentiments. No? I would like to preface yung reaction ko with one of the quotes from Lian Buwan, yung judicial beat ng rapper. Sabi niya, in order to win this war against disinformation, we must first acknowledge that we are losing it. Bakit ba natin hindi ma-win tong digmaan na to? It's because merong tayong mali sa retorika natin, no? And that rhetoric isn't able to capture the people back to our side, kumbaga. And I think that is because po na we are still working under the false assumption na media outlets should have the monopoly on truth, monopoly on the agenda, or monopoly on information, when in fact, that is no longer the case. No, media outlets no longer have monopoly of the agenda and information. So with that false assumption, yung nagiging goal ng movement natin is to make people listen to these existing institutions that supposedly have the tools to search for truth. And I think that is insufficient. No, yung rhetoric kasi ang nangyayari, listen to us kasi kami lang yung tama, listen to us kasi tayo lang yung may apparatuses to search for truth. But instead, I think dapat ang rhetoric natin, pakinggan nyo kami, papakinggan namin kayo dahil sama-sama natin isi-search yung truth, di ba? Let's empower the people, sabi nga ni Gab, the masses are not passive recipients of information. We are co-creators of truth, di ba? So we must empower people to be critical, no? So they are active agents. We are active agents in the pursuit of truth, you know? So instead of making the goal, instead of rendering the goal of this movement to be as making people listen to these existing institutions, let us give the tools to the people to search for truth. No? Wag natin i-monopolize yung tools of journalism, of truth searching. Let us give it to them. So the academe and the press should have a mass-oriented character. Institutionalize natin yung media and information literacy, not just in senior high school, but in junior high school, elementary pa lang. Let's empower the alternative press, diba? Community journalism, student publications, no? Because if we empower these civil society organizations, maramdaman ng tao na, we have stakes here. We are involved, and diba? Not unlike the traditional outlets na they view as elitist, diba? Kasi hindi sila sinasama sa discussion. So para ma-empower natin yung people to actually be more critical consumers of media, involve natin sila sa discussion, diba? And I would like to focus another on the phenomenon on trolls then. Let us be careful to distinguish who is a troll, sino yung bot, sino yung friend and family, no? Isa din pong realization ko kanina as Ma'am Linda and Sir Art were discussing, no? We must be careful not to completely antagonize trolls. Kasi let's analyze and address, bakit nga ba sila naging trolls in the first place? Bakit sila naging troll? Kasi kailangan ko ng pera, kasi kailangan kong ipag-aralan yung anak ko. Merong economic condition behind it. So let's address that. Let's address the material condition that prompted them to become trolls. So let's create jobs. Let's improve social services, diba? And let's view the reason of their, rather, tingnan natin bakit ba sila nagiging trolls, diba? Kasi the existing institutions through which you can air out their politics are broken. They do not work. Kaya they go to these means na accessible sa kanila. So let's fix those institutions. Diba? Let's reform the rhetoric with which we are progressing in this movement. So isama natin sila. So yun na naman po yung ano ko. So siguro question sa ating mga speakers now, how can we make these institutions that seem intimidating, that seem parang detached somehow from the grassroots, how can we make them more closer to the people? So yun po yung aking sentiments with regards to this topic. Thank you po.
Thank you very much, Jeman. And I'd like to right now call back to moderate the roundtable, former Senator Joey Lina. Senator?
Yes, Greg, let us commend the three reactors. This
Galing.
new feature of our webinar series to involve in every webinar our young people. After all, they comprise well, the biggest sector in our society, and they are the ones who are building their future even now. Even now, they're already building their future, and therefore they have to be part of this webinar series and in the overall task of nation building. Let's repeat their names. Krisha Milini Bricio. Let's give her a big round of applause. John Gabriel Garcia, Gab for short, and of course Jesse Jeman Malibiran Jr. Maraming salamat sa inyo, ano? At ito na ang simula ng isang malawakang pakikilahok ng mga kabataan sa webinar series na ito ng SoulPH. At alam mo, malaki ang magiging role talaga ng kabataan, lalo na sa darating na halalan 2020. Kung ang mga kabataan talaga kikilos at tutulong sa pagpili ng mga karapat-dapat na mamumuno sa ating bayan, ay makakakita tayo ng banaag ng bukang liwayway, wika nga, no, ha? Na aking pinangarap ng aking kabataan, makita yung silahis ng bukang liwayway. Silahis lang. Pero ngayon, malapit na ako, sa sunset na ako, takip silim na. Kahit na banaag na lamang ng bukang liwayway, ano? Hindi pa pumuputok ang araw. Banaag na lang. Kasi madilim pa rin. All right. Let's welcome back Linda Humilia and Art Samaniego, Manong Art. Yung bang, pwede bang ako unang magtanong? Yung bang, alam ba yung advertising? Advertising. Totoo naman yung sinasabi. Sabihin mo na, political advertising. Pero gumagamit na ng technology. Gumagamit na ng technology. Siyempre, yung maraming resources, kung anong istorya ang gusto niya na ikalat, hindi naman mali, hindi manufactured. Pero, tulad sa isang produkto, kung palaging naririnig yung produkto ngayon, yun ang produktong mabibili. Yun ang reality of that's the reality of advertising. Okay, hindi naman masama 'yon, Hindi it will not qualify as either fake news or disinformation. But should it be countenance? I mean, should it be tolerated? Shouldn't government also traffic that kind of imbalance in advertising?
Senator, if I may answer, I think if you're referring to political advertising on social media, this is allowed, obviously. I mean, Facebook allows it, and it's part of, it's part of the political exercise that we have, that people are able to advertise online as well as in other media platforms. I think ang importante lang naman, dapat ma-label ng maayos. Kung ito ay political propaganda, then ilagay. Katulad ng hinihiling, let's say, na COMELEC sa mga ads sa TV, sa dyaryo, maging sa mga billboards, kailangan may nakalagay, di po ba, na paid for by so and so, or paid for by this political party. So I think that political propaganda is not per se a bad thing. it is part of the political exercise that we have during elections. It's part of our democracy. But to be clear about it, on digital, the same rules and regulations that apply to, let's say, political propaganda on television, on radio, on the billboards, should also apply to digital propaganda, political propaganda. Wala pa yatang limit, Senator. Hindi ko alam kung may limits na, kasi hindi yata kaya ni COMELEC mag-monitor. Kung mamamonitor lang nila, kasi di ba sa radio TV, you're only allowed X number of minutes. I think 90 minutes for television per network. Oo.
Sa social media, wala pang rules.
Parang wala pa silang na-create na, wala pang nagagawang rules si COMELEC. But because the difficulty, I think, is how to monitor it. I mean, it's everywhere. There's no, it's physically impossible for COMELEC to monitor ilang propaganda na meron.
Pero yung mga bots na ginagamit sa politika, yun, pwedeng tigilin ng mga social media platform.
You know, social media platforms are also very careful kasi katulad nga ng tanong ni Krisha kanina, merong how do you make sure that when you enact anti-fake news laws, you're not impinging on freedom of expression and the free exchange of ideas. And this is why experts who have researched this phenomenon or this issue of disinformation are not advocating sweeping anti-fake news laws. Hindi nila sinasabing, bawal ang fake news. Hindi nila sasabing, gumawa tayo ng batas outlawing fake. Although some countries have done that. Some countries have done that. But they do not recommend that because the other danger is you are curtailing freedom of expression. There is the danger that you will curtail freedom of expression. There's the danger that you will restrict free exchange of ideas. There is the danger that you can use this to harass enemies or critics. So ang gusto nila targeted yung mga batas. Halimbawa, kung ang disinformation ay laban sa iyo and you were defamed, then ang batas dapat defamation. Yun dapat ang action mo laban dun sa nagpagawa ng disinformation laban sa iyo.
Well, there is a cyber libel. It is already included in the Cyber Crime Prevention Act of 2012, no? That's the libel compute that is committed through internet, no? I mean, there is already a law, but I'm referring to this to advertising using technology. Hindi ng tao, of course, if every citizen out there, I am for this candidate, he's good, etc. He's expressing his opinion. Ano? Pero pag dinaan na sa technology, kanya-kanya ng bot, no? Then should that be tolerated? Well, you already said that maybe COMELEC should look into that, no? Because that will put one candidate at an advantage, just like in the traditional media, may cap on advertising expense, no? Pero pag gumamit ng technology, kung ano yung marinig na kandidato using that technology, if it is not regulated, therefore the one who uses that resource will have a distinct advantage over others who do not have that resource. I'm talking about the technology, ano ha? Pero kung human beings ang nag-express ng kanilang opinion, mas magaling siya mag-organize. Of course, some people will also be paid to do that. But yun, mahirap po ng that there is really a line, no, na you cannot cross. Hindi mo alam kung expression ba niya yun o binayaran siya, wala ka na magagawa, no? But yung technological use, mayroong innovation na ginamit, maybe that is something that government can look into especially the Commission on Election, to regulate that kind of practice, because hindi na tao yung hindi na tao yung nagsasalita.
Sir, you don't need bots to reach your target audience. All you need to do is just pay Facebook. Bayaran mo lang si Facebook, they will give you this detailed data on how to reach your target
boost,
audience.
Of course, i-boost.
Yeah.
Mag-boost.
Yeah. Sir, pero it's boosting kasi is not just simple boosting. Because you can use Facebook technology to target specifically. For example, you want to target people that went abroad 2 weeks ago. Facebook has that data.
Yes. Even geographical
like
area.
now,
I understand that, Art. But what I'm saying is, yung ginamit mo na yung technology na itong mga troll farms, for example, it can either be used by one group, and another group can also use that. No, I mean, nobody is exempted from doing that. Pero yun, nire-regulate na rin naman ng Facebook yung mga bots, di ba?
Ngayon, sir, the algorithm of Facebook, the technology of Facebook is so intelligent that it could identify a fake account even before that person who's making the fake account press the activate or enter button. So 99% of these fake accounts are controlled. Pero sir, tignan mo ha, early advertising on Facebook, August 2020 to April 2021. Number 1 is Sherwin Gatchalian. 4.5 million na yung ginastos niya. Next is Trillanes. So ito na yung mga nag-advertise, ginagamit ang technology ni Facebook to reach their target audience. And Facebook is doing something like, kailangan mong i-declare na political ad tong pinopromote mo. So pag nakita mong promoted ad yan, it is not accidental that you're seeing these ads. It means you're targeted by these politicians, by these scammers, wherein pag may nakita kang promoted na nakikita mo sa wall mo,
ad yan.
Pasok ka sa target audience nila. Pasok ka sa tina-target nila because you are more likely to engage. So, studying all your activities, malalaman nila na this guy is more likely to engage with me, to engage with my ad. So, ginagawa ni Facebook, pinipresent sa iyo yan ni Facebook because these scammers and these politicians are paying Facebook so that you could see their promoted posts.
Yeah, well, I follow that. No problem. Talagang ingenuity yan I mean, kanya-kanyang creativity, ingenuity, how to reach as many people as possible, targeted marketing. That's understandable, no? Maybe the COMELEC should now regulate the involvement of social media in political advertising. It can be classified as part of advertising expense.
Siguro it would be interesting to look at I mentioned earlier that California has an anti-bot law, and despite the name, it is not something that disallows or declares prohibits the use of bot. What it does is it tries to reduce the powers of the bots because the law requires that a bot or a person controlling them reveal their artificial identity when they are used to sell a product or influence a voter. Meaning, kailangan mong i-declare na automated bot ito, hindi ito totoong tao. Pero hindi sinasabi ng batas nila na bawal yan. Actually, it's allowed because you use bots in so many aspects of, online transactions. Even just vacation responders, when your email replies to somebody emailing you na I'm out of office right now, these are bots. So meaning bots per se are not bad. They are used in our digital lives. It's how you manipulate the technology that makes it, negative. So yung batas ng California, babasahin ko lang, the law requires that bots or the persons controlling them reveal their artificial identity when they are used to sell a product or influence a voter. the anti-bot law makes it illegal for any person to use a bot to communicate or interact with another person in California online with the intent to mislead the other person about its artificial identity. So pag nagpapanggap ka na itong tumatawag sa iyo through the internet, convincing you to vote for so and so, is a bot pero hindi mo idideklara na bot yun yung parang bawal, or kahit nagbebenta lang ng produkto. So that's something innovative, I think, and something that we can probably look into down the road if you want to come up with laws that are targeting or undermining the technological advantage of purveyors of this information.
Okay. Let me invite now the three reactors to also shoot their questions. And then after a while, then we will get questions from the chat box, read some of the comments so that we can have this discussion in full. Okay, who will begin from our from our youth sector? Gab or Krisha? Krisha, you shoot your question. Now.
Actually, nasagot na din po ni Ma'am Linda yung question ko earlier about drawing the line between preventing fake news and not hindering or freedom of expression. So I guess I'll give the floor now to Gab or Jaman.
Before Gab and Jaman shoot their questions, can I ask you a question also?
Sure po.
To our young reactors. Well, in the battle for hearts and minds of the people, you have your ideals, no? You have your ideals, you have your dreams, and you want to get these dreams across to the population, so that the dominant or the views that will prevail will be aligned with your dreams, your vision. Can the youth be social media warriors, in effect, meaning propagators of truth and your dreams in social media? Can you take them among so many roles that you can play? But because social media is right here before us, I mean, it's a technology that is being used to ventilate one's opinion and form or influence others. Can the youth of today maximize this technology to share and influence society about their dreams and aspirations?
Actually, I'm very confident po to say that the youth is very active and very vocal in social media, not especially when it comes to spreading information and news, and of course, educating people. Lalo na po pagdating sa fake news, kapag may nakikita po na may nakikita kami na may nagpre-prevail na fake news, we do our job immediately to educate the people na nagpo-follow sa amin, our friends in Facebook, to educate them about the specific news or specific issue. And actually, I'm very happy then to see that the youth is taking it beyond social media. Na ayun nga po, tulad ng sinabi ko kanina, dadalhin yung diskurso sa labas ng social media. The youth is doing that very actively right now, na dinadala nila ito sa kanilang pamilya, kahit sa kanilang mga group chat, kung saan dun talaga maraming fake news kung makikita natin, na they educate their family members, they educate their neighbors, their friends sa neighborhood nila. So I guess yes po, the youth is very active and positive when it comes to influencing people to join them in their dreams and aspirations for our country.
Okay. Yeah. Jaman.
Thank you po. Ayan, I very much agree po with Ate Krisha, no, with regards to the youth as a social media force, no. Kasi ito, if kung pwede ko lang po ilangkap yung disiplina ko po, no. Suri po kasi namin sa agang papolitika. Philippines is a strong civil society, no. Marami tayong organizations, and most of that, marami pong organisasyon ay binubuo ng mga estudyante, ng student organizations, no. So the number of student organizations pa lang, yun pa lang po ay isang indicator that the youth are very much ready. The youth are very much willing, no, to engage in politics at to really address these issues, especially and to communicate with our family members with regards to ayun nga yung misinformation, disinformation po. So ayun, kahit yun po yung isa sa sinasabi ko kanina na hindi lamang po ang mga traditional institutions, no, ang may kakayahan to search for truth. Kasi maski po sa mga student organizations namin, for example sa UP, kami din po may mga publicity materials na sinishare sa Facebook, sinishare po namin sa mga friends and family namin. So the youth will definitely play a great role in the coming elections po. So ayan.
Oh, Gab?
Ayan, sir. So, I do agree then with Krisha and Gemma, no? And siguro, just to add some stuff na lang din is, reiterate po yung sinabi ko kanina about safe spaces of asserting the rights. Ayan, parang siguro it is very important na lang din for all of us, for the youth, and of course, for all of the citizens in the Philippines to create a safe space for these young minds to voice out their concerns, voice out their rights. Kasi ayun, siguro kailangan na nating i-drop yung culture, Filipino culture natin of like na parang bata, wag ka munang magpolitika, wag ka munang makisawsaw sa ganyan kasi bata ka pa, marami ka pang matututunan. Kasi hindi rin naman alam ng youth lahat. Admittedly, as part of the youth, marami talaga na mas may alam yung mga mas matatanda sa akin. Pero let's create a space for discourse. Ayan, kaya very important yung ganitong webinars din, di ba? Na nakaka-establish tayo ng a space where we can talk and napapag-usapan natin yung thoughts ng isa't isa. So, ayan, the youth, of course, has a place sa social media course natin. But hindi, again, sabi nga ni Ma'am na kanina, no, hindi siya lone task. Siya ay force ng society as a whole. So, ayun, sir.
Okay. Now, I leave it up to you now to shoot the questions to our resource persons. Maybe Jeman, you shoot your question also to Linda or to Art.
Sige po. Ayun po. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Grabe. So ayun po, going back to my question kanina, it's about, I was talking about how we could democratize these tools of searching for truth, diba? So, given po, siguro kay Ma'am Linda po muna, no? Given nga po with the recent closure of ABS-CBN's yung broadcasting po, no? So, they really had to shift to the digital space po, no? To social media. So, kamusta naman po yung state ng ating mga regional outlets po, no? Kasi yun din po yung malapit sa tao, diba? Yung mga grassroots na reporters natin from the region. So, kumusta po yung state nila, kalagayan po nila?
Thank you, Gemma, and thank you for asking that. It's something that yan yung isa sa mga heartaches namin itong mga nakaraang taon. As you know, we had to let go of the regional network group, of ABS-CBN. We have to, because they're basically operating free TV. So dahil wala na kami sa free TV, wala na din tutustos dun sa mga tao na nasa regional network group. However, some of them are still contributors. They're still very active in submitting stories, alerting us what's happening in the regions, in the provinces. Kasi for us to be a really national news organization, kailangan natin ding malaman yung nangyayari sa ibang probinsya, and sila talaga yung our people on the ground. We are still, we haven't lost hope that someday we can all be in one newsroom again. Hindi natin alam, but marami pa rin silang nandyan. Some have taken up other jobs. But thank you for asking about them.
Thank you po, ma'am.
Anyone else? Gab?
Ayan, question na lang po kay Ma'am Linda at kay Sir Art. Kasi sa ABS-CBN po, Manila Bulletin, ayan, very respectable news organizations, diba? Source of information and facts po natin. Ano na lang po yung, siguro as journalists na lang din, ano po yung take nyo on this new form of journalism, or kumbaga yung nangyayari ngayon na hindi na lang mouthpiece ang mga journalists? Kasi naging debate na rin to, no, na parang some reporters are just live tweeting statements from the different politicians that we have, and minsan yun yung nagiging source of fake news, diba? So hindi naman siya necessarily false information kasi sinabi talaga ni person A, person B, pero because of the context of the live tweeting, nagiging source of false information siya. So is it dapat ba yun na yung maging bagong norm for journalists, or is it something na we should still work on?
Art, you wanna go ahead? Go first.
Thank you, Linda. Dati kasi sinasabi nila na journalism is written on top of the mountains.
Discourse and foreplay.
Kami yung mga gatekeepers, kami yung mga editors. Kung ano ang gusto naming ibatong storya, you have no choice but to read and listen to us. Ito ngayon, age ng technology, nagbago na to lahat. Kasi part na ng newsmaking process yung mga tao sa baba. Dati parehang pyramid. Kami nasa taas, kami taga-dyaryo, kami taga-TV. Kung anong gusto namin ibalita, kami magde-decide kung ano ang importante. Ngayon, ang social media team namin, tinitignan kung ano ang trending, tinitignan kung ano ang interest ng mga tao, at yun ang ginagawa namin ng istorya. Kasi yun ang gusto nyo marinig. Kailangang mag-adapt kaming mga journalists kung ano ngayon ang bago. Kung hindi, mamamatay kami at wala nang magbabasa sa amin. Pero dapat, kung ano ang value ng mga journalists, kung ano ang journalism talaga, dapat ibaba namin to, yun nga, sa discourse ng mga bata na gaya nyo. Dapat maintindihan nyo kung ano ang importansya ng double sourcing, ano ang importansya ng pagsasabi ng totoo. Kaya dapat mag-adjust kami. Gab, kailangan namin mag-adjust at mag-adapt kami sa mga kailangan nyo. At yun ang ibibigay namin sa inyo. Pero dapat isipin namin na yun pa rin ang basic. Dapat yung katotohanan ang ipadala namin sa inyo.
I see your point, Gab, no, when you say that when you're tweeting on the fly and you're just quoting the politician or the government official or whoever is being interviewed, it might be, there is a danger of disinformation or misinformation. Tawagin na natin misinformation. Because nga it does not have the context of, it does not have the background, it does not have the context. A tweet will allow you only to put in 140 characters. So on the one hand, because of the very fast news cycle and the digital news cycle, every minute may bago, every minute kailangan mo ibalita, etc. You cannot avoid these live tweets, no? Especially when yung mga live blogs, meron talagang mga ganun nangyayari. But we try our best to always attach, halimbawa, di ba, tweet thread, ito yung breaking, ito yung some quotes, and then sa dulo ng tweet thread, andun yung full story. Kasi it's important for us to also come up with the big picture, the context, the background. Hindi lang siya 140 character tweet kasi hindi mo nga naman masasabi lahat doon, and maybe some people instead of being informed get misinformed. So on the one hand, we have to adapt to the digital news cycle. It's very hard kasi matatanda na kami, but fortunately we also have very young writers, we have very young social media managers, and they're very agile. But at the same time, we also have the job to provide still the context and background and the full story.
I have a question.
Yes, Greg.
To everybody, especially Linda and Manong Art. In the mainstream media, we have norms of self-regulation. For example, I remember there is even may ad board pa, no? Advertising, you have to prove truth in advertising, something like that. And the norms of journalistic ethics. Why? Is it a pipe dream that we have something like that for social media?
We need to ask Mark Zuckerberg and
then why not take the issue to them? Ibig sabihin, if they can suspend Mr. Trump and they have an oversight board, why can't we have something more immediate in order to instill a kind of, to lessen the fake news? No, of course, we don't want censorship. We don't want curtailment of the freedom of expression. But can we not think of some way altogether, no? Para bang baka naman para bang mutually assured distraction, no? We guard one another sort of thing. But self-regulation and some norms, why can't we consider that in the social media sphere?
Ako sa akin, I think Facebook has gotten too big already to have some form of number one. Number two, their business model, which is dependent on shares, likes, interaction, getting things to be viral, is actually dependent on that kind of thing. But I'm sure it's not too late. It has to be something that the social media platforms need to decide for themselves or commit themselves to. Well, marami namang nagpapayo. We have all these studies. If you look at it, ang daming mga recommendations for social media platforms to also try to do their share or to do more in combating disinformation. So, kailangan talaga mas marami pa silang dapat gawin. Maybe one way to compel them is government regulatory action, but that is also something that is beyond our control as users, as consumers of news and information.
So, ang business model, yung business kasi, ang Facebook kasi, it exists because it's a business. So, magbayad ka kay Facebook, ilalabas yung ad mo, ilalabas yung sponsored post mo. In March 2021, 26.17 billion ang kinita ni Facebook. Not by selling your information, but by selling to you the information which you are interested in. So hindi pinagbibili ni Facebook yung data mo. Ang ginagawa ni Facebook, pinagbibili sa'yo yung mga interest mo. And if you're more likely to engage with that, doon sila kumikita. At dahil alam na ni Facebook kung anong oras ka gumising, alam ni Facebook anong kape ang iniinom mo, alam ni Facebook anong oras ka nagpupunta sa CR, lahat yan itatarget ka. So it's business. So wala tayong magagawa. Also, the scam posts now are really disturbing. Ang daming nananakaw na account because of these posts, which the scammers paid Facebook so that you would see them, you would see the posts. Bakit walang ginagawa ang government? Bakit walang ginagawa the ICT once called me and asked me about those things that I post. Pero hanggang doon lang, hanggang inquiry lang. Pero wala talaga nangyari. I think we need to make Facebook, we need to make the social media networks accountable for what they're doing.
Baka the young people have an idea. How do we make Facebook and all these platforms accountable? I know you like your freedom, you're empowered, but you understand that there are limits. How do we make that? What are your ideas? Baka nasa inyo ang idea.
Siguro if I may start po, no? Kasi ano po yan, isa din po talagang hot issue yun, di ba? Kasi the digital space, it doesn't consider the usual borders of countries, no? So in the digital space, such as Facebook, sinong may sovereignty, kumbaga. So this is not just a problem that we need to face as Philippines bilang isang bansa. Kailangan natin to idulog, kumbaga, sa international institutions, no? Let's form alliances, let's coordinate with other countries in dealing with this problem, kasi these issues of disinformation, di lang siya limited to one country. So tingnan po natin yung nangyari sa 2016 elections ng Trump versus Clinton sa Amerika. Nagmedal po ang Russian trolls, di ba? Russian bots. Tapos sa Philippine elections naman po noong 2016, influence po yun ng Cambridge Analytica scandal mula naman sa UK tsaka sa US po. So it's important na meron po tayong international agreements, binding agreements na i-ratify din ng ating sariling Senado to deal with these types of issues po. So yun po yung political side of it po siguro.
Baka dapat
Yung
may
Cambridge
contest
Analytica,
tayo,
yung Cambridge Analytica issue noong 2016, there are only 1,000 accounts in the Philippines na na-serve yung na-serve yung information ni Cambridge Analytica. So I think, well, sa mga pag-aaral na ginawa, wala siyang epekto na significant effect sa Pilipinas, yung Cambridge Analytica na yun.
Okay. Let me read from the chat box. Ito yung sinabi ni Gilbert Azagra. We will know starting this 2022 elections the extent of the influence of the educated, principled young minds using modern social media to the masses of Filipino voters. Parang challenge sa inyo ito, Krisha, Gab, and Jeman. You all said that the youth are active. Is there an organized movement among the young people to take up the cudgels, for truth to be the one that to prevail in social media? Oh, that's a very tall order, no? But how can the youth be impactful as far as content in social media is concerned? At least in our country, do you plan to organize yourselves into such an organized force that everyone is social media literate and that you can use social media to purvey the truth
and to change our nation?
And to change our nation. And to change our nation. Inong araw kasi, kami periodicate. You know? And manifesto distribution. Physical. We distribute our manifestos, no? At saka periodicate. Yun ang aming outlet, no? And then DGs, discussion groups. Now, yun ang, and of course the rallies and the demonstrations, no? I'm not saying you do the same rallies and demonstrations, but limited yung aming way to disseminate our ideas. Talagang face to face kami. Discussion groups, manifesto, flyers, and periodicate, at saka ano pa ba ito, mga banners, But here you have a whole range of social media platforms: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Ang dami. Can you dominate this social media platform so that the ideals of the young will be the ones to be heard in all corners of the country?
Go!
Anyone?
Ayan. Actually,
By the way, Gab, hindi ko binasa yun sa chat box. Don't be offended. Sinabi, hindi, TikTok kayo ng TikTok eh. I'll read the comment, no? There was a comment here. TikTok.
Sabi niyo active ang youth.
Sabi niyo active ang youth. Pero paano niyo mahimok ang mga youth mahilig sa TikTok, Instagram, selfie, etc. Oh. Did not come from me. It's from the chat.
Ayan. Actually po, meron naman po ngayong existing youth groups composed of different organizations sa iba't ibang schools na student-led din mismo. And Ayan, kaya very important din siguro sa aming kabataan na ma-impart sa other youth to remember to be organized. Kasi napaka-importante ang collective effort, no? Doon tayo papasok sa collective effort na parang making us feel na our individual actions have meaning and impact. And gusto ko lang din po i-refer yung isa sa mga na-chat kanina. Sorry, hindi ko lang naalala kung sino yung I think si Thads Miguan about ang tawag dito, echo chambers. Ayan. Ito kasi yung parang nagiging sakit ngayon ng mga kabataan. Ayan, yung mga social media is an echo chamber. Usually naman kung sino yung mga nagpo-follow sa'yo na or nakakakita ng tweets mo or posts mo sa Facebook, selfies sa Instagram or mga videos sa TikTok is yung mga taong with their same beliefs and same principles. So aside from being organized, isa sa mga siguro pwede nating i-challenge sa mga kabataan ngayon is to break this echo chamber, to try to reach out to more people. Ayan, na instead of like blocking people, blocking your relatives na kakaiba yung lahat sa mga nanonood or may mga bata dito, for sure dumaan tayo sa ganyang point in our lives na parang we want to block certain relatives or pag may nakikitang may opposed belief, iba-block natin sa Facebook. Ganyan. Ang dali kasi mag-block ngayon eh. And ayun, we need to penetrate these echo chambers and go beyond dun sa mga taong same beliefs and principles natin in order for us to actually have maybe impact sa this coming election na kalaking role nun for us. Ayan, baka other si Gemma or Krisha would like to add.
Okay, related before Krisha comes in. There is this comment from Mars Katan in the chat box. My teens say that our generation needs an organizer because we wait for someone to initiate mass action, whereas they just go ahead with their individual advocacies, knowing that others like them are also doing the same on their own. This is why movements today are much quicker than ours than our generation. Well, I have a comment on that, but anyway, the point is, our generation needs an referring to our generation.
No, the teen generation
No.
needs.
Yeah, but in the end, it's quicker to organize a movement now because of social media. But anyway, I think the point of at the issue is, before we have, I'm not saying you don't have it now, no, but maybe I'm disconnected with this generation. Before I was there, I was the one very active, no. But is there a collective action being done, organized, systematic, that each school, organization or council is able to touch base with the others so that the youth becomes a strong, organized force in Philippine society, at least on the student sector level?
Ayan. So to amplify then Gab's answer earlier, and sa sinabi din ni Jaiman earlier na madami nga pong student organization and student council sa Philippines who have the same aspirations for our country. And napapansin din natin na we have the same or similar webinars, activities, pero yung nangyayari, ayun nga, kalat, so hindi nagiging collective or hindi nagiging organized yung ating efforts and hindi na ma-maximize. But over the past few months, may nakita, personally, I saw an improvement na yung universities, they partner up with different universities, just like in UST, they partner with UP, Ateneo, and LaSalle to raise different concerns sa CHED, especially, excuse me, nung online setup. And we have different actions or movements as well to educate the people regarding different issues. So this small step na pagpa-partner ng big universities, as we consider them in the Metro Manila, is a huge step already to make a larger and more organized effort to educate the masses. So ayun, step by step lang. It is hard actually to organize or to have a collective effort, but it is possible. And of course, it is possible with the help of all student organizations and all student councils of different universities and colleges, and even yung mga NGOs who support the same causes para mas ma-maximize natin and mas elaborate kumbaga yung impact na magagawa ng youth.
Mhm. Well, may this webinar be the beginning youth movement that
Malapit na elections.
that can create an impact in our society, especially on very pressing issues like West Philippine Sea, like that, no? By the way, we're very active. We're organizing an alliance for life and the law of the sea, Citizens Alliance for the Law for Life and the Law of the Sea. And there are some student groups that sign. Maybe you can also sign in that statement, and it will be launched. The alliance statement, and it will be launched. The alliance will be launched on July 12. On July 12, that's the 5th year anniversary of the arbitral award that we won from the Permanent Court of Arbitration, that the Philippines owns the right to explore and develop all the natural resources within our exclusive economic zone, and no one else can interfere with us unless we waived it, no? So maybe we can invite you to sign, to co-sign with that and be part of the starting 50 organizations. 40 have already signed, so we're looking for 10 more to sign that statement. I hope you can be active there, no? For the jugular question, Linda and Art, how can the truth seekers, counter this organized disinformation campaign going on in social media? Whether as a citizen, individual citizen, of course, Krisha already mentioned a very important thing, that we can get the discourse out of social media, bring it also to our respective homes, so that we can discuss the truth and the latest news that is correct, within our own sphere of influence. But in the jugular, because it's an organized thing in social media, even this webinar was already attacked by a troll, no? I mean, they felt alluded to by the title. We're not referring to anybody. It's just that anybody can do it. The right or the left can do it. It's a technology. It's neutral. It's how you use it. You take advantage of it, no? So, but we want to fight evil, assuming, and we're not alluding to anyone, but we want to fight falsehood in social media. What can we do?
I think for civil society and then for people's organizations, lahat tayo, and just siguro to set the record straight, I probably I think that tama naman, there was a time when journalists and journalism was supposed to be the ones that were most concerned about truth, news agenda, etc. But that has changed a long time ago, especially with the internet and with the advent of social media. And it has really democratized debates, discussion, exchange of ideas. So I would want, despite the thinking that some people think that we journalists set ourselves apart from the rest of the community. I would like to think that I am one of the community, as a matter of fact. And I count myself, we count ourselves as part of civil society, as part of the democratic institutions in our society. So para sa akin, I think all of those who advocate truth and advocate a stop to disinformation should join hands in all our literacy programs. Yung media literacy, when we say media literacy, it's not knowing how media works, but it's knowing or teaching people how to critically analyze information that they see online, especially on social media. No? Dapat talaga magtulong-tulong tayo, members of civil society, members of the academy, everyone who has a stake in this country. We need to reach out to each other, even those who are not traditionally allied with each other, the sectors that are not. Kasi napaka-organized ng kalaban. They have the technological advantage. Whoever it is, no? I mean, we're not referring to a particular person, but those who are trying to manipulate technology to serve ends that are not acceptable to us. Organized sila, they have the technology. We need to also reclaim our place in social media, in the online sphere, in the digital sphere, because that's the only way we can, go against this information.
Sa akin naman, I fight fake news one story at a time.
Let's get together.
So wala akong binablock sa Facebook, wala sa social media. Well, may mga taong nagbablock sa akin para wala nga akong bubble. So nakikita ko sila lahat. So para sa mga kabataan natin, so pag meron kang dalawang taong kausap, sinasabi ng isa sa'yo na umuulan, sinasabi ng pangalawa sa'yo may araw, hindi mo responsibility na isulat silang pareho. Responsibility mo na tumingin sa bintana at para ipahayag, ipadala sa mga readers mo kung ano ang katotohanan. Yun ang dapat nating tandaan. Sa mga kabataan naman natin ngayon, wag magpapadala lagi. Kasi yun nga sabi ko kanya, di ba, these criminals, criminal na itong mga to they target our prejudice and biases. They attack our emotion. In 2015, mayroong grupo ang tawag Duterte Cyber Warriors. Itong grupong to, pinamalita nila na kaya kanilang i-take down sa Facebook, kaya kanilang tanggalan na account sa Facebook. At nagpakita sila ng mga equipment. Lahat ng mainstream media, kinuha yung Oplan Cyber Tukhang as truth. May mga kabataan na nagsasabi na, ito, isang bata, estudyante sa Katipunan, may 200 followers. Dahil daw anti-government siya, ninakaw yung account niya. Pero that time, ang katotohanan nun, meron lang glitch ang Facebook. Pero lahat ng mga kabataan nagsama-sama at sabihing inaatake sila ng gobyerno. Lumabas yun na fake news. 2 years ago, nagko-clone ng account si Facebook. Ewan ko kung natatandaan nyo pa yun, may biglang nagko-clone ng account. Kinlaim kaagad ng mga estudyante na dahil anti-terror bill, against sila sa anti-terror bill, kino-clone yung account nila. So yun yung bias nila Yun yung paniniwala nila. They don't accept other explanation. Pero nung chinek namin, Thailand, Sweden, Singapore, lahat to mayroong problema sa cloning of account. Hindi totoong tinatarget ng mga to dahil sa stand mo. So always remember na hindi umiikot sa iyo yung mundo. Dapat open kang makinig sa ibang reasons at huwag sarado na tinatarget ako dahil ito yung paninindigan ko. So be open to other explanations.
Mm-hmm. Art, hindi mo sinagot yung tanong na itinatanong na marami. Hindi ko itinanong. Pagka mayroong mga umaatake sa iyo, binubuli ka sa Facebook, how do you handle it?
Don't engage. Lagi ko ina-advise, don't engage.
Okay.
Pag meron nang bubuli sa iyo, pag merong issue na nangyari sa iyo, ano ba mga malalang issue? Sex scandal, pinakita yung mga nude pictures mo. Give it 3 days. Meron na naman pagkakaabalhan ng social media. Pero pag nag-engage ka, sinagot mo yon, mabubuhay ulit yan. So when somebody's attacking you on social media, do not engage. Yun lang yung rule doon.
Or wag ka na maghubad. Oh. Okay. Maraming salamat kay Linda Humilla Abalos at kay Art Samaniego. Palakpakan natin. Use the icon there. Thank you so much. Ang daming natutunan ang ating mga kasamahan sa inyong dalawa. You're a blessing to us and to all our reactors, Krisha, Gab, and Jeman. We are very happy that you have with us tonight. We are inspired by your presence and also by your thoughts. And we are hopeful that our country will be in good hands with you at the helm in the future, because you're building your future now. We just hope that soon the youth will really be so organized that you can make a heavy impact in the dissemination of the truth and in the overall task of nation building. Maraming salamat sa inyo, and we will get in touch with you and connect you with the other youth groups that we have been in touch with. Bahala na kayo. I mean, we will just help get you together, but you have to make your own analysis. You have to make your own decisions. There are 6 takeaways, ladies and gentlemen, that we should stress before we part ways. And before the raffle, we have a raffle, Greg? We have a raffle. Okay.
Don't go away, guys. May raffle pa.
May raffle, no? Sa concert ni Lara Maige. Napakahusay na Pilipina soprano. Young soprano. 6 takeaways. Be careful. Be careful. When you engage in social media, be careful. Think before you click. Think before you click. And number 2, verify. Verify. Number 3, share the truth. So be active. Be a truth sharer, not just a truth seeker, but truth sharer. Number 4, change the discourse. Bring the truth to your family, to community, and become an influencer yourself. Number 5, careful legislation. Yes, there may be a need for legislation to regulate some activities in social media, but be careful so that you don't cross the line to the point of violating the freedom of expression, which is enshrined in our Constitution. And number 6 is let's get together. Let's get together and move things forward so that the truth will be the one to dominate our society. Maraming salamat sa inyo. Mabuhay. Magpipicturan muna tayo. Huwag kayong aalis. Magpipicturan at magkakaroon tayo ng raffle.
Raffle.
Thank you po sa lahat ng nakinig. For some reason, I cannot reply to everyone on the chat, but marami pong salamat sa inyong mga comments. Thank you.
Okay. Maraming salamat. Picture.
One more.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Smile. All right.
By the way, the topic on June 19 webinar, is hashtag Halalan 2020 :
2022.
2022. Is there hope? Is there hope? Hope means honest, orderly, peaceful election. Is there hope? Okay, so mark it in your calendar. We will have that. This is part of the continuing education webinar series by the SoulPH, the output coming from the Public Policy Research Group, para nga yung katotohanan ay siyang kumalat sa ating bansa. So Greg, can you handle now the
Thank you, Senator. To the questions in the chat box kanina pa, yes, there will be e-certificates of attendance made available through the QR code, pero mamaya sa pagtapos, no, so that you could prepare your cell phones for scanning or screenshot of the QR code. Then you will be part of the Google Docs. May natutunan tayo, Senator, para mapapadala yung e-certificate sa inyo. Keep your phones ready. As well, there will be QR code for #halalan 2022 is their hope, which is the next webinar. And keep your cell phone ready for that. Ayan, ito yung QR code. So we will have enough time at the tail end. Right now, we'd like to proceed with the raffle. For those still remaining here, qualified kayo. If your number is drawn, those that are registered in our roster of registration are going to be given specific numbers. Tapos meron ng parang parang tambiolo o relay, no? Which the Zoom team will now spin. And let's have 2 winners. Team, go ahead please.
Wala na bilhin yung ticket nito.
What will happen here is the winners will receive the email from yours truly to extend to you the free e-ticket to the concert. June 25, Lara Maige, Queen of the Night.
Yan na.
Okay, 235. Let's proceed to the next one para ma-check kung nandito si 235. Okay. 62. Now we will be checking if 235 and 62 are here. Maybe spin 2 more numbers for backup, just for backup. May provisional. In the okay, 22. So, and one more. Make sure for, syempre, yung first 2 na nandyan, mananalo yun. Okay. For the benefit of our audience, all the SoulPH webinars, now 11 of them, including this one, 307. So, John, let us check kung nandiyan dyan yung mga numbers, no? If they're still around. All these webinars, 11, are accessible through our Facebook page, SoulPH. So, to help you in your data bank, I must admit, reliable, high quality information through our webinars on a variety of issues and policies that we mentioned earlier. So just log on to our Facebook page, like it, follow, and that will help keep you updated on the latest webinars. We have so many webinars going forward.
Okay. Do we have the winner?
John? Yeah.
Meron ba?
235. Ito si John Medwin Uy. Is he here?
He's there po.
Okay.
He's there. Okay, John Uy, congratulations. Through email, we will convey to you your prize, your ticket.
Next.
So this is an online concert. You can watch it through any device on June 25 at 8 p.m. You merely click on the link and take you to ktx.ph. How about the second one, John?
Para sir though, 3 that we picked, wala na po sila. Yung first one
Okay.
lang po nandito.
Pick a couple more. Sige. Oh. Sayang yung mga nanalo sana. You know, when you win a ticket, your whole family can watch. So, napakaganda. No? For family entertainment. 331, go ahead. Some more.
Okay.
Greg, yung link for the certificate.
Perhaps while we're waiting for the next winner, Team, can you upload the QR code for the e-certificate? Ayan. Those that need an e-certificate of attendance, scan this, take a screenshot. If you have a laptop, i-screenshot nyo rin. Pwede yan. With the phone, if you have a internet connection, just scan it now. Take you straight to the site. And you'll be registered and we will send you by email your e-certificate.
Sir, 149 po. Ma'am Veronica Phoenix.
She's
Oh!
Yeah, okay.
Okay. All right. Is she here?
She just left po kanina.
Sorry. You have to take i-spin hanggat may manalo. You know, there's 181, so the chances are good. No? Get 2 more numbers, John. 2 or 3 para mabilis tayo. Yeah.
siguro last na yan.
Last na. Last na.
Sayang, umalis. Oh.
Okay.
Get a couple of numbers, 2 or 3 para I think I can do it. 2, 6, 9. Some more. Tatlohin mo na para ano.
Okay.
What number? 62. So let's check that in sequence. In the meantime, we have another upload for the QR code for the next webinar. So you have a head start. Can we have the QR code for June 19? Ayan. Hashtag Halalan 2022 is their hope. HOPE, honest, orderly, and peaceful elections. And Dr. Nelson Celis of the National Association of, he's the head also of the Center for People Empowerment and Good Governance, CENPEG. He's also part of the National Association of Data Protection Officers, an expert on the subject matter. So just scan this and be registered for June 19. O baka tumama na kayo sa raffle by the time. So take advantage of this already. John?
Sir, may winner na po tayo. Si Ma'am Glyza May Parva. She's
Is
currently
she here?
Yes po.
Okay. So we have Mr. Uy and Glyza May, no? Please expect an email from yours truly, Greg Atienza. So we will convey to you the prize. Congratulations. And with that, friends, we will be bidding adieu. Thank you very much. Happy Independence Day. Patuloy po natin ipaglaban ang ating kalayaan at manatili ang ating kalayaan, pati na rin sa freedom of speech and all of that. And we hope that you have found our seminars, our webinars meaningful and adding value to you. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We hope to see you again and again starting next week with our June 19 webinar, Halalan 2022 is their hope. Thank you very much. We will be seeing you next week. We will stick around to flash the two QR codes for the next webinar and the e-certificates. Thank you very much and God bless us all. Oh, may I call back Brother Lito Pardo? Is he still around for a closing prayer?
No,
Brother Lito?
He begged off. He just had his second vaccine. Now he's feeling unwell. Can you do it, Greg?
We then need the closing prayer. In the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Father in heaven, we thank you for blessing our evening with wonderful information. May we digest this, reflect on it, and be receiving information as to how we can uphold the truth, especially in social media. Grant us, Lord, inspirations moving forward. And as we part ways, we ask, Lord, that you keep everyone in this webinar safe, also including their families and friends, that we may continue, Lord, to walk in safety and level paths. This we pray and ask through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. See you next week, mga kapatid, mga kaibigan, mga kababayan.
God bless.
God bless everyone. God bless.
God bless you all. We will be having the QR codes, e-certificate, and registration for next webinar for those that have not yet done so. For the rest, feel free.